So I'm going to start the recording. And then I will share my screen to go over. All right, hopefully you can see my screen now. You should be able to see the agenda. So we'll go through, we'll have a quick update on the COVID-19 situation, and then we'll get to the meat of the actual technical meeting where Sebastian will go over the proposed changes for competitions for next season and give you an overview of the competition schedule that's being prepared for the coming season. And then before the end, I will go through and just show you how to renew or players on Sport Lomo. I'll just do a quick demo on that. So let me just put on this, get started. Hopefully you can see my presentation now. So a quick update on the COVID-19 situation, where we stand today. I'll give a quick overview of the return to play protocol and the phases, and especially which phase we're in now. Then we'll just look at some of the tools, videos, and documents we've produced and made available on the website for you guys, and a word on finances in this crisis and the solidarity funding we're hoping to put in place. So as you've probably seen and heard a lot about, it's the Swiss Rugby Return to Play concept, which was a concept we created for return to play in 5 phases. So from the start, it was always taking consideration that, as some of you guys mentioned before we got started, players have been on break for quite a long time, some of them since before Christmas, and some of them certainly since when the season should have started. And so the plan always involved at least 2 to 4 weeks minimum of conditioning with no contact, and then at least 3 to 4 weeks of training with contact, some contact, before going into full rugby training and friendly matches. So phase 1, as you know, started from the 11th of May, where some clubs started with activities in group size of no more than 5 and social distancing of minimum 2 meters. So the activities really were some running, some conditioning, and basic training. Then with the latest announcements by the government, we are able to skip phase 2, and actually from today, the 6th of June, we can officially enter into phase 3, which foresees group sizes of 30 people, and contact is allowed so long as you track everyone's attendance. So you'll really have to track the names and contacts of who is present at your training. So the rule says that people have to keep the distance even in sport, and if they don't, so in contact sports, you really have to track the attendance. So of course now this allows you to have training sessions with nearly your whole team, or perhaps your whole team if you don't have more than 30 people, and with light contact. Why do we say light contact? Because obviously if people haven't been playing or training for many months, then you first, of course, as you will know, and your coaches want to ease them into light contact. And then it's been pre-announced, but this still has to be confirmed, that phase 4 may be able to begin from the 19th of June. And if it's not the 19th, then it'll be the 29th of June. So the Federal Council, the Bundesrat, has to confirm this, but then the group sizes will increase to more than 30, maybe 50, maybe up to 100, but certainly more than 30. Contact will be allowed. And so that's really when you can start with your full team or several teams, the full contact training and preparation sessions in preparation for competitions. And then that would be phase 5, because for the moment, competitive matches are explicitly not allowed, but it's been pre-announced that at the beginning of July, and this date still has to be confirmed, but it should be beginning of July, you can have more than 50 people, which would allow you, for example, for 2 teams to meet for a friendly match, and then subsequently for league matches to start again in September. So again, the whole return to play phases are 1 from a a coronavirus perspective, but two, also from a player welfare perspective, where, as you know, when people haven't been training and playing for a long time, they will then have to start practicing and easing their way into full contact. As I sent to the club presidents the information that each club now has to fill out a Schutzkon, a protective concept. There's been a template made available by Swiss Olympic where you basically just kind of have to fill in your details and it's almost all ready for you. I sent that around by email. It's available on our website and also on Swiss Olympic's website. And basically what it contains is steps for risk evaluation and very important triage of symptoms that players with any symptoms or coaches don't come to training. And then, as I said, really important the tracking of the presence of players. So you would be able to know if there was an outbreak, whom to notify within your club. And then the concept also foresees the necessary distancing and hygiene rules and blah, blah, the things we now all are very much aware of for the last few months. That's that. Then on our website, we've created a special page for the for all coronavirus info. So it's from the main website. There's a nice picture of the coronavirus. You can click on that, or go directly to this address, which we'll also share with you the whole presentation. And there you can find the return to play concept in 3 languages, the return to play posters, which show the graphics of the phases, then the updates as of today, June 6th, and we will also include any next updates by the government, which should come out on June 19th or 29th, and then beginning of July. There's also a bunch of tools for implementing the whole return to play. So there's things from tables for tracking your presences to suggestions how to set up your pitches and a lot of stuff like that. There's a strength and conditioning program for under 16, under 18, and adults if your club or your coaches need some inspiration, which Sean Seal, who's a strength and conditioning coach, has prepared with us or for us. There's also 1-hour training session for kids rugby if your coaches are looking for more skills and more things to do. There's also videos of all these exercises, and as we go through the next phases, we will keep updating and preparing videos, and that's actually been done by Sebastian and Rahel with the youngsters at the training academy in Zurich. So big thanks to them too and the youngsters for doing that. There's links on there to other online resources like World Rugby's return to play tools, and also some documents by Swiss Rugby and the OSPO, the BASPO. And then there's material regarding the Stay in Your Club social media campaign to encourage members not to abandon their club during this period. Then last point on this first section is about finances. This crisis has had a financial impact on the FSR. We haven't generated any income in the spring because all our activities have been halted, and as you know, we have logically not invoiced any clubs for anything since they've been in activities. We've taken all the possible and necessary cost reduction measures. There will be a big financial impact, but there's a possibility still that we would have that we would avoid a loss for the season, that we'd have a positive outcome, and we will send you a more detailed financial report as always, well ahead of the assembly. I've also been in touch with the clubs in April and then again beginning of June regarding the financial impact of the crisis on you guys, on the clubs. For us, it's really, really important that Swiss Rugby as a whole, that means the clubs, the regions, and the FSR come out of this crisis not only alive, but actually strong enough to then hit the ground running and thrive once we come back fully to activity. And so for that, we've been in touch with the federal government. We're collecting the needs from any clubs who might be in danger or might have urgent needs, regions and similar, and the FSR itself. And we're going with that to the federal government for emergency funding if that would be needed to keep rugby alive in Switzerland. So make sure if you haven't sent me anything yet and you are in trouble or in need, please do so before the 11th of June. The last point then is a solidarity fund, which we, the FSR, want to create for the season 2020 and 2021, which is really going to be made to help any clubs in need. So the solidarity fund, the idea is that any clubs who are in financial trouble, we will try to cover parts of their fees, whether it be competition fees or other fees for that club in 2020 and 2021, to make sure everybody can come out of this alive and can keep working and keep playing, and we don't lose anybody. So if the FSR has a positive result from the season, that will go into that fund, and any other organization sponsors and even government money and clubs can add to that solidarity fund. And for distribution, we'll apply the same criteria that the BASFA and Swiss Olympic do. So it's very important that any clubs who have financial needs first exhaust the existing measures in their municipalities and cantons, where they often provide help for clubs. And then anything that's needed on top of that, we will try to help the club through the Solidarity Fund. So if anybody needs help or has questions on that, they're welcome to contact me, and some clubs have already been in touch with me. All right, that actually covers those points. So if you have any questions, just hang on to them and keep them, and we'll go through all the questions afterwards. And so I will pass on to Sebastian, who will go through the competition updates.
Can you see my screen? It's okay?
Yes, very good.
Okay, after a good presentation in good English, now a bad presentation in bad English. So good luck for you to understand to me. So to introduce you this presentation, as you know, the next delegate assembly will be held on September 5th. But the COMCOM, the competition commission and the central committee have some change to propose to you. Unfortunately, we cannot wait the next general assembly, because we will have only 1 week between the general assembly on September and the restart of the championships. So I will introduce to you the motions that we will propose. And during June, we will organize an electronic vote for this motion. So we have some change for the laws of the games, for the mandates of the competition commission, for the condition of participation in LNA, and for the promotion for the development leagues, the labeling system, and we have a motion from Switzerland. I will try to present all these points. So the first motion is about the laws of the game for the National League. It means all the leagues except development leagues, so LND and Women's B National League. There is two options for this modification of the laws. There is one option proposed by the competition commissions, and the second one is proposed by the central committee and of the board. Sorry. During the vote, you must choose option 1 or option 2. So the proposal of the competition commission. The competition commission thinks that all the national leagues can play with the World Rugby laws, the full World Rugby laws, because they think that all the players and all the coach have all the competencies for the World Rugby laws and without problem with the safety of the players. So the proposal is removal of the specific rules for the Women's League and the Excellence A, and for the A, B, and C League, it's the same last year. It means for all this league, full scrum with the World Rugby laws. And second point, it's obligation for all this league to have front row substitutes. It's new for Excellence A and for the Women's League. In details, what is these obligations? If you are 15 or fewer player, you must always to have 3 players be able to play in front row. If you are from 16 to 18, you must have 4 players able to play in front row. If you have 19 to 22, you must have 5 players able to play in the front row. And if you have a game sheet with 23 players, you must have 6 players able to play in front row. It's something new for us because the previous season, we don't look the number of players able to play in front row. If we decide to play with World Rugby, we must respect also these laws. The second part of the proposal of the Commission competition is for the safety of the player. We are okay that we play with World Rugby, but if one coach thinks there is a problem with the safety of the player, he can ask to the referee to play non-contested scrum. The referee must accept, but the team must take off 1 player. So you will play with 14 players against 15 players. And in this case, we must continue with uncontested scrum, but with 8 players against 8 players. It means that you have 1 player less for the back. It was the option 1, the proposal of the competition commission. For the option 2, the board's proposal, the board thinks that, for instance, in Swiss, the player from LNBC, Excellence A, and the Women League are not able to play full scrum, and it could be dangerous. So the proposal is to continue with World Rugby as this season, last season, with World Rugby laws, in scrum. But for the other leagues, we will play with the under 19 laws. It means you can push for only 1.5 meters in scrum. It is the first motion. And of course, for the proposal of the board, we will apply the obligation regarding the number of players able to play in a front row. C'était clair, Véronica, à peu près? J'ai perdu Véronica. Okay, motion 2. The mandate of the competition commission. It's just to change the regulation on the statute of the union regarding these points. Since 1 year, the competition commissions manage the development league, but we didn't change, for instance, the statute. It's just this point, so it means, sorry. We want just change the regulation and give this mandate to the commission competitions. After that, the competition commission have some proposal for the national league, and the big idea is to have more flexibility for this league regarding the number of players. And it's the first thing. And the second point, it's to remove all the penalties if you have the financial penalties if you have not enough player. So the proposal are that first one is regarding the number of player. The coaches of the two equipes before the game and the referee can choose the number of players who can take part to the game. If one team have 12 players, we will play with 12 players against 12. If one team have 10 players, we will play 10 versus 10. It is the idea to have a lot of flexibility, and we can decide just before the game. It depends of the player who attend to the game. Second idea, if a team have less 10 players, it's only a technical forfeit without penalties. But you can make a game. There is no problem. 10 against 10, or if you want, you can share some players to have a game 15 against 15. It's not a problem, and there is no penalties, financial penalty, and no financial penalties. The only case there is a forfeit and with financial penalty and you lose points in the ranking, it is if it's a no-show. If there is no player on the pitch, it is a forfeit, and with all the consequence. There is proposal regarding the laws for the development league. The idea is if the two teams are able to play a full scrum, the two coaches can ask to the referee to play with the World Rugby rules in scrum, but only if the two teams agree with this idea. Motion 3. The motion 3 is the result of a work of the commission competition. The idea is, for instance, we think that the LNA is only for the clubs who are in the clubs that are in the big city. If you look the League A, there is only Zurich, Lausanne, and the Geneva area. It's very difficult for clubs from a little town to go in LNA because you must have absolutely two teams. It means 80 players if you want to teams. And for a little town, little city to have 80 players, it's very, very hard. So the proposal of the competition commission is to remove these laws to have 2 teams. So for the next year, the proposal is you can play in A League if you have, of course, a second team in Excellence A, but also if you have not an Excellence A team, but a National D team, you can also play in a National League A. And or the last point, if you participate actively to the development of the rugby in Switzerland, it means if you have women team or if you have a kids team or youth team, we think you can play in A League. The commission competition are working on objective criteria about this point. We will define clearly what means to participate actively to the development of the rugby, and we will give you a proposal quickly. Motion 4. Motion 4 is for the second team. For instance, for the second team in D League or in Excellence E, you have some obligation of number of players in this team. If you want substitute with your first team, you must have more 15 players on the game sheet of the second team. It is actually obligations. It's not good obligation because for the to have some substitutes, sometimes some teams must use some old players or some very old players or some player without experience in second teams. And we think it's very dangerous. It's why we think we must remove these laws. So for the proposal is for the next season, no obligation regarding the number of players for the second team. For the Excellence A, it means if you want to have substitute, you can have substitute and you don't need to have some 16, 17 or more players in the game sheet of the on the second for the second team. And it's the same ID for the second team for the B League who play in the D League. No obligations. Motion 5 for the promotion for the development leagues. The men D League and B League for the women. There is 2 change. The first one is regarding the number of the player on the game sheet. If you want to be promoted, you must have 15 players all the season on the game sheet. We will change that and to give 2 jokers to the teams. It means that you can play 2 times per season with less 15 players on the game sheet. When we look the statistic of the last season on the previous season, if you look Basel, for example, in B League, the first game there was only 14 players, and after for all the games they have more 15 players, and it's okay. And if we follow these rules, the old rules, Basel cannot to be promoted because they have only one time 14 players. We think we can have jokers, and it could be more easy for the teams. And the second idea, it's for the D League. As you know, in D League, you can have a second team who play in D League, second team from B League. If the old rules say that only the teams who take part to the final can go in C League. We can imagine one year there is a final between two second team, maybe Basel versus Winterthur. In this case, there is no possibility of promotion for Jura, Thun, or the other D League. So we change that, and we think that the team with the best ranking can be promoted if they have the condition for access to the promotion game. No forfeit, more 15 players, not being a second team. Not second team. Next motion, labeling. There is the labeling is a project to help club in their development and to assess with objective criteria. So we have with the labeling two proposals. The first proposal is this labeling is mandatory for all A and B clubs. For the other club, it's only on the voluntary basis. If these clubs of E or A or B league have this label, it means that they can play with the A league. The label, the diamond or the gold label can replace the obligation to have a second team. It is the first proposal. The second proposal regarding the labeling is, we can say, a sanction. If you have no label, you can play playoff. So a team who play in A league, if they don't have the gold or diamond label, can access to the semi-final. And for the B league, if you don't have the bronze label, you can access to the final. This motion is in two parts. First part is to validate that if you have a label, you can access to A league. The second part of this motion is the access to the playoff. Last motion is the request of the Switzers club. So, Veronica Tunset, I didn't see. You can see Gianni sent to the union a motion to be promoted in A league. His argument are he has good result during the previous season. He has a substantial number of players. And this player agreed to play in A league. He has positive friendly game versus French teams and some A leagues. And the last point, it's the idea of the board. It could be good to have a league with 8 clubs. So we can have this proposal for next season. In A-League, Birmingham, Zurich, Lucerne, Cern, Red Zone, Albaladejo, Basel, and Switzers. On B-League, Saint-Gall, Abusive, Intertour, Zeeland, Zug, and maybe Luc. Luc, it's not true, for instance. But we can see that we have 5 clubs in B-League. So we can have an interesting championship. So that's all for me. I hope that you understand me. I don't know, Veronica, it's okay? C'était compréhensible à peu près?
Yes, I think so. We can always just take some questions after. Maybe we can, you can just show the overview of the season calendar to give a full picture for next season. And then with that, we can open afterwards to questions about those changes and the calendar itself.
Okay. So we will speak about the registration, the deadlines, the case of entente, and the draft of the calendar. So for the registration, all the clubs received this form. Just remember the deadline for the registration is the June 8th. So for instance, I don't have the registration from Bern, Biel, Cern, Geplo, Hermance, Luc, Lugano, Lucerne, Monté, Neuchâtel, Nyon, Riviera, Roots, Schaffhouse, Sierre, Solothurn, Switzers, Vurenlos, Yverdon. And for the women, I don't have for Red Zone and Mermigans. For the intent, don't forget that write the name of the intent that you take part. I show you the example for les Trois Lacs. There is an intent Sealand Trois Lacs, so they write on the form that they are in intent. If it is an intent for a women team, maybe you must write that you have an intent on the name of the intent. And the draft is this. So the first game will be in September 12th. We will try to have 3 games and after 1 week of rest as time is possible. We have block of 3 games. We have problem for the second part of the season. As you know, there is a lot of games and not a lot of dates. And we have problem with the Easter. Sorry, I don't know the English word for Ascension and Pentecost. We must play during this date. So, for instance, I choose to play the game for the week of the Ascension, but the club, if you want, you can change. And if you prefer to play for Easter, you can play to Easter. It's a deal between the 2 clubs. The final is in June 12th. And if we can, we will try to organize in the same day the cup final and the 7th final. But we must find a club with 2 pitches. If we can't find that, we will play the final of the cup on the 7th on different dates. Sorry. The last problem with this calendar, it's with the Swiss team. On the game of the Swiss team, for the women and the men, we have the same problem. For instance, we have no information from Rugby Europe for the organization of the competition next year. So, for instance, I choose some date, the last that the previous seasons, but it will be a hard negotiation with the other country because they must accept that our date is good for them. So I hope that I will be good in negotiation with the other country. You must know that next year for the men we will have 3 games in Switzerland. I choose to have a game in April to organize a game in the German part of the Swiss. So if there is a candidate, send to me an email. Last point, it's the cup. The cup, one club asked us to organize game before the championship. It's why there is Cup 1 in 5th September and the 28th November. So you have the possibility to choose for the first leg of the cup these 2 dates. That's all. Of course, after this meeting, we will send to you all the documents.
Okay, thanks for that. Does anybody have any questions about any of the stuff? You can raise your hand on camera, or you can use on the right side the raise your hand button. I think Andrew maybe was the first. Just give it 2 seconds. It should unmute. What's happening? Yeah, I tried to unmute you, Andrew. That should happen in a sec. Okay, there you go.
Yep, I'm unmuted. Okay.
Go ahead.
Just quickly, may I suggest that we have another motion regarding the votations on the LNA and the Excellence A motion, where I think that teams or clubs voting should be limited, like when it's with Excellence A or LNA or LNB. I think it should be limited to the clubs in those leagues should be voting on matters which concern them. You know, I don't think like the ladies teams, LNC, the development leagues, and things like that should be voting on things that are quite important to us as LNA and LNB. You know, I'd like to have sort of like a separate vote. If they want vote their side, if they want to keep their things separate as well, you know, that's fine. But I think it's just too important for us, you know, to have these matters voted on by everybody with regards to clubs in LNA, Excellence A, and LNB.
I think that's
I'd like to put a motion,
very good point, Andrew. That's a good point. As you probably know, in the current governance structure, the statutes foresee that everyone votes on everything. There is, as you know, a current review going on of our governance, and that's an important topic as part of that review. But for this next assembly, the way to do that would be for a club to submit that as a motion. As you know, a club can submit a motion. Okay. And then the assembly would vote on it, and if it's accepted, then that would be valid then at that point. So given the current structure, that would be the way that's done. And I know we've discussed that with in many different forums many times. So I do think that there could be interest in somebody in a club submitting that motion.
Because you see, when we're talking about Excellence A, clubs voting on the fact that you can it's optional to have an Excellence A team. I think that doesn't work at all, because if you want to develop rugby in the country and you want to develop the youngsters coming through from the schools, you're going to have to play your teams in the same place. LNA and Excellence A should be playing in the same place. Because if you have a team going out of Excellence A, you say, oh, it's okay, fine. We're not going to have games every weekend. And guys, they're gonna go away. I mean, we're going to lose players, you know. So I just think it's so important to us to have our teams together on the same day, because it just gives that competition, the edge of competition for places. It gives the edge to the teams to because the word is excellence that you use, okay? So we are trying to install excellence into our youngsters coming through. And if we can't blood them into our first team at the drop of a hat and say, right, you know, you're going to have 10 minutes on the first team, you're going to have 15 minutes on the first team. This is what these guys that are coming through. I speak to all my players, the youngsters coming through. And they all say to me, their aim in life is to play for the LNA first team. And the way through is Excellence A. And if they're not having games every weekend, they're going to disappear. We're going to lose them. And we're already losing enough players. So I think it's just very important for us in LNA, and I'm sure Josh will agree, that there's no ways, yeah, exactly. There's no ways we can say it's optional to have an Excellence A team. No, it's not optional. You must have an Excellence A team. And we must play together on the same day. Because logistically, if they're playing on the other side of the country and we're playing somewhere else, logistically, players, finances, it's just going to be a complete nightmare. Already we're struggling for finances, and now we're going to have to buy a bus. I'm just looking like in the development team, Bienne, Jura, Basel, Thun, Sierre, Winterthur. So we're going to go play in Hermans, and my Excellence A team is going to go out to somewhere else in the Jura or Bienne or Basel. It's just doesn't make sense. You know, it doesn't make sense. And they know that when they're chosen, they get chosen and they go with the first team or they go with the Excellence team. But if we're together at the same time and we say to the guys, listen, we're going to bring you off in half time because I want you to run 10, 15 minutes in the first team. We need to have a look at you, see how you're developing. That's what we do. We're developing players, and that's how we develop players. But if they're in two separate places and you say to the guys, it doesn't matter if you have an Excellence A team or not, I don't think that works. And I think that's very important for us. And I think us, LNA or LNB, because they'll be coming up to LNA, I mean, that's what they're playing for. Those two leagues should be able to have a vote on that.
I absolutely agree with you, Andrew. The only way that I could imagine, only way, and I don't like it, but it's just to put it out there, is that if the other team had to travel to where the NLA game was being played so that they could play the NLB team, the Excellence A team. That would be the only possible way, so that they're not going to have any home games themselves. They're going to be away every single game, either for the home game of the NLA club or the away game of the NLA club. That would be the only way. Otherwise, it really doesn't work. There's no possibility. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Guys, after it's only, I think it's only for one clubs. We don't change all the format of the Excellence A. If you look, maybe one time Lugano or Monte can win the B League, but they don't have the second team. Okay, yes. Let's go. Lugano go in a A League, but there is 7 other teams with an Excellence A team.
I understand your logic, but you still are changing the league, because for 1 out of those 8 weekends, or 2 out of those 6 weekends, or however many there are, you're going to not have a second team game, or you're going to have a second team game where it's going to be away or a much lower quality of team. I think
guys, what is the
100%?
What is the most important? That the big teams who are in A League has only 12 games with the second team instead of 14 games, or it's more important that we give the chance other clubs to go in A League and develop rugby in Swiss, where there is, for instance, no elite rugby.
But then you're saying that our second teams don't matter. That's what you're saying with that. You're saying your second team, when you're National League A, it means shit to us. It means nothing. Wow. That's what you're saying when you're saying that they get less games just because another club is getting priority by getting only one team.
it's not us making that decision. That's the club presidents, and it's the competition commission who is making that proposal, which is composed of 10 members from 10 clubs, and now it's all the other clubs deciding that. For me, the arguments in both directions are valid, and that's why it has to be put to a vote. I also think Andrew's proposal is very valid to propose that maybe only A and B League clubs vote on this. So these are, I think, those are good reflections. And Andrew, if you want to, we can talk offline on if you want to submit that as a motion, we can definitely welcome that. But I think definitely we believe there's a good arguments in both directions. Hang on, Andrew.
Right, okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so, as you're well aware, I've been around for quite a while. I've been president of Stad Lausanne for 20 years. And I've probably seen 3 or 4 systems come in, okay? And we've voted, and the things have changed regularly, infuriatingly enough. And we all voted this, having an LNA and an LNA reserve, which we now call Excellence A. We voted that in a couple of years back. And in my 20 years of being involved as president of Stad Lausanne, this is the one that works best. I've never seen clubs develop so well and develop the youngsters so well with this system. And now all of a sudden we want to try and change it. Why? Why are we wanting to change this? Just to give a lower league team that hasn't had the effort or whatever it may be to get itself a second team or to get itself more players and to make itself stronger. So when it does come into LNA, it does have a reserve team. If you don't have a reserve team, sorry, you can't come in. Sorry, you haven't developed rugby. And that's what we're all about, is developing rugby. And this system now is the best system I've seen. Don't know why we want to change. I really don't.
All right.
After Andrew, you have the luck to be in a big city. Do you think that maybe Monté or Fribourg can have 80 players to play in A-League? They can have maybe 30 good players able to play in A-League, but it's impossible to find 80 players and to have 2 teams in Monté. For example, I say Monté, but there is. So I understand, and I'm okay with, if we want to develop rugby to have 2 teams, it's good thing. But sometimes it's just impossible.
Okay, but can you hear me?
Of
Yes.
course.
You can hear me? Okay. It's the same all over the world, I mean, as you know, I'm from South Africa. Same thing there. If you're from outside of Cape Town or outside of Johannesburg, you're struggling. You don't complain that you can't play against Cape Town clubs or Johannesburg clubs. You get on with it and you try and develop and you try and play them. That's the way it is. It's competition. It's fair. The same thing in Australia. It's the same thing in New Zealand. It's the same thing all over the world. Why are we, excuse me, I mean, I'm not going to be derogatory to anybody, but it's like it's almost like the English mentality that everybody should be a winner. Bullshit. It's the same in Premier League football. You can't have Exeter, who's down in the middle of nowhere in England, playing in the Premier League. Why? Because they're not a big city. They don't have the funds. They don't have the players. So that's your lot. Unlucky. Really. Try and develop. Try and get yourself into the LNA. Try it. Try and develop your game, your sport.
The point's taken, certainly, it's not a wrong one. I'm going to go over to David, who's been waiting to say something or ask a question. So, David, just 2 seconds. Oops.
Yeah, can you hear me? No? Okay. Well, so kind of.
David, we can hear you very loud with a big echo. Maybe you can make the speakers lower volume and then you speak to us.
Now? No?
No. do you want to write in the chat? Maybe he's getting an earphone. So maybe we can go to Rahel. Maybe David is getting some headphones. Where are you, Rahel? Just a second. Should be unmuting now. There you go.
I assume you can hear me.
Yes.
I have a question. Maybe I missed information, but we were talking about the criteria to move up from, for example, LNB for the women to the LNA. But what are the criteria to be relegated? Is it just like being the last one after the preliminary rounds of LNA? Or I think last year we discussed that it's more of a criteria point than just a placement point, that you could stay in LNA even if you're becoming last, if you fulfill all the criteria.
Attends, Seb, we don't hear you. Just wait 1 second. Go ahead.
To be promoted, you must win the play-down game. So the last one from the A League must play against the first of the B League. If you lose the game, you go down in you be relegated in a B League. If you win I don't know the English word, sorry, in French we said barrage. Play down, the same?
Yeah, playoff, play down game.
If you win the play down, you stay. If you lose the play down, you will be relegated in B League.
But Sebastian, in the women's A League, if it will stay with 7 teams,
yes,
we could come up to 8 before to start relegating.
Alors, attends, j'ai pas compris ta question, Véro.
Donc en fait, si la Liga féminine reste à 7,
oui,
ça peut arriver un jour qu'il y aura une promotion sans relégation jusqu'au jour qu'on aura 8 équipes. C'est bien ça le but, non?
Oui. Good question. Sorry, we don't speak about that with the Commission of Competition because, for instance, in the statute and the regulation, the A League is 7. So normally, the last one must play the play-down game. But if the motion of next year is the Switzers is accepted, we will play next season with A League, 8 teams, sorry, and there is only a play-down with the last team from the A League. If the motion of Switzer is not accepted, the play-down will be against the last teams, so the 7th teams from the A League. Okay. There is a direct promotion is only in the case of a club propose a motion. It is the case of Switzers, but if this motion is not accepted, we continue with the old format with 7 clubs.
Okay, I try again, David. Okay.
Now? No.
Echo, but no, go. Try.
Okay. Yeah, well, okay, I'm sorry. I never used this computer the whole quarantine for Zoom. So, first thing about the decision how to form the LNA, I think, of course, it affects the LNA, but it also affects the LNB somehow, because on how to go up and down. And I see both points from both sides, but I still don't know what to do. Like, we are in a position that we have a 2nd team and we are in LNB, and we have teams ahead of us which only have 1 team. So they cannot go up, but we also don't want to be forced to go up, because we want to win a championship and go up to League A. So this is like the thing which we have to look into. What does it mean? If you just have 7 teams in LNA, then everybody has 1 game less. And I think it's interesting interest of every club to have a second team, or in my opinion, because that's how you grow. But maybe there are clubs who have a strange technique to just keep one team, but that would be strange. But I don't know if we can flop the topics, because I have a specific question about some other motions. And one thing is the motion from Switzers to go up to League A. I mean, we as a club, with having a team in LNFB, are kind of strongly against it. By our experience of the last season, we had so many games called off. Zug never played. It was very frustrating for us. And if now the one team which always can play goes up, we are left with Zug. Are they really playing this season? Zeeland, do they really have enough girls or not? I don't know. Maybe Luc. And this is very dangerous. We talked about this last year. We lose a lot if we have just like a crippled league in B with like 3 teams playing sometimes. So I don't know what is the situation really in Zug and Zeeland and Luc. If they really play and we have 5 or 6 teams in B, okay. If not, it's just strange if just always one team goes up and the rest is kind of having some fun games called off. That's super frustrating and destroys rugby if you want to spread it, then we have a problem. And the other question is about the labeling system.
David.
Yeah.
Let me answer, please. So, for instance, I have the confirmation from 4 clubs. 4 clubs: Avusi, Vinti, Zeeland. I'm sure that these clubs have enough players to play a real championship. I am waiting for the answer from Zug. Officially, Zug registered his women team, but for instance, I could not speak with the manager of the team. I am waiting that the manager answer my email, but before the vote, I want to be sure that all the clubs have enough players to play the B League. If it is not the case, if I have not this confirmation, I will inform you before the vote. And after the clubs, you can choose if you are okay for the Switzerland in A League or if not.
Okay, just that everybody knows what would be the consequences, because that's also something which affects only a few clubs, and they think, okay, they want to go up, bye-bye. But think about the consequences which we have for rugby in general, and also like especially for our girls. And the other thing is, and we will see. I'm glad you will inform us, and just because by my experience we had teams signing up and not really playing. So yeah. And the other thing is about the labeling system. Is there also a plan until when will the labeling be done? I mean, it's very critical to introduce a labeling system where you have rules with diamond, gold to play in this and that league, but there has to be a clear roadmap on when we go to the clubs. Not that we end up with only half of the clubs really have this label and the others don't, or are not prepared, and then we have this rule, this law, who can play where. I want to be really sure that there is a roadmap and we know who is doing what, when to be safe. Okay, we will have the label or not. That's important for me to decide about this. Otherwise, it would be too early.
No. After David, before the vote, you will have we made together the label. I will contact you this week. So you can have before the vote what is the label and where you are with Winter Tour.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about us. Like, what is the general doing the review of the label every year, every second year. It's just, I don't want to be sure about this. It's not about winter tour. It's just about the general way to go about this label. You know, this has to be clear. Otherwise, it's a very difficult decision to make. Yeah.
So I can understand, because, for instance, I do nothing with you. I promise you, I contact you this week, and we will do this week. After, there is maybe George can answer, because we do 2 times with Getse. The first time it's not very clear. The second time I think it's better. And now, for when everybody understands the process, it's easy. It's just 1 hour. It's just a call with Zoom. It's 1 hour, and it's easy to do. And to do all years. And the idea is just before May, I must have do the label with all the clubs. And my idea, the first one is with me, but maybe in the future, you can do the label with Rael, with the DTR of your region.
Okay. Yeah, this has to be clear. Until when, who, blah, blah, blah. Because until now, I just heard some clubs made the labels, some didn't. There will be a rule that you need the label. When will I have the label? And will it be every year? Or, yeah, just, it has to be clear to decide, to make the final decision. That's from me.
Okay. I understand.
Thanks. Rael has raised her hand in the virtual.
Yes.
Go ahead.
In regards to the labeling system, so if we've done the labeling now, is that rule already applied for next season if the motion is accepted, or is there going to be like a longer time period to get everything in place as a club?
Alors, remember, there is 2 parts in the label. The first part is the label is mandatory for all the A and B clubs, and it could be a criteria to be promoted. It's the first part. The second part, it's the sanction. We can say that it's no label, no playoff. When we propose the motion, there is the 2 parts, and you must vote for the part. Okay for the label or no. If it's no, there is no second question. If you are okay, are you okay for that the label give the possibility to play playoff? Huh? And if it is voted and accept the 2 parts, we will implement that next season.
I have a second question about the scrum safety of the players. Yes. I was wondering if we have enough good referees that allow us to play with these roles. Well, sometimes we have referees that don't seem, or that struggle with the game. If you have a referee that has done 1 course and is refereeing their first or second game, it's a bit difficult with not so experienced scrums. You mean
it is challenging for them to referee a full scrum, or?
Yes, I think it would be it's challenging when you start as a referee, first of all. We struggle to have enough referees. So sometimes we maybe have referees that are not so experienced. Then we have the full scrum with players that might be not so experienced, because honestly, from our part of it, we don't have an excellence team where they can start having experience as a front row player, for example. So you're always in a kind of training situation.
I think that's a really good point. And in fact, that's why the board felt in a similar way that some referees would have find it challenging to referee full scrums, but they also considered some newer players could find it challenging to play in an 8-man scrum, and also in a full World Rugby rules scrum, and also some newer coaches could find it challenging to teach the players how to play a safe, full level World Rugby scrum at every level of our competition. So that's the reasons the board felt that it wants to offer a second option, even though the first proposal is, and it still stands, to allow the full World Rugby scrums at every level, and the board, for those reasons, wanted to offer a second option, and then it will be for the club presidents to make the reflections like you just mentioned and to decide.
And I've got one more question.
All right.
I'm sorry. I saw that World Rugby published some like COVID rules amendment changes to the game. For example, that the scrum is not repeated, that you cannot choose a scrum instead of a penalty, etc. Are these rules, might they be implemented in Switzerland? Are they meant to be used, or is it just for countries that have been even more affected than Switzerland?
I'm actually in the working group in World Rugby that's working on these things. It's like England, New Zealand, South Africa, Australia, and me, because they asked us to join because we've been quite active on the whole return to play thing. But of course, it's technical experts that suggested these rule changes you mentioned, and those are optional rule changes that are available. So in normal life, a country is not allowed to change the rules of World Rugby, except if you say we use World Rugby Under 19 adaptation or this kind of thing. And so, but some countries, in order to be able to start to play rugby in August or September or October, they have to change the game a little bit. And to allow this possibility, World Rugby has said, okay, where are the times that the players spend the most time in close contact, breathing to each other? And they've calculated that in a scrum and a maul and line outs, they spend the most time in close space, small space contact with each other. And so these rules go in a direction to allow you to spend less time in the scrum. For example, by doing a scrum once, if it collapses, somebody gets a free kick, but there's no reset. So you don't try it over and over and over. And there's also another rule option that says you only have 2 seconds in a ruck, and you only have 5 seconds or 3 seconds in the maul, and those kind of things. For the moment, it is seen by the Swiss government that the sports can all resume as normal from July, including judo and that kind of thing. And so it doesn't seem necessary for us to use these rule adaptations.
I'm done with questions.
Josh was raising his hand. Josh, hang on a sec. Unmute. Takes a couple, there you go.
Okay, so a couple of questions just that came up during the presentation. The uncontested scrums, taking away one fewer player. You said, Sebastian, your example was then 14 against 15 or 7 against. What happens in the case where there's a yellow card or a red card or multiple yellow or red cards in play, also in the scrum? Because the uncontested scrums, then you would take another person away, which would seem like the strict enforcement of the rule. But I just want to kind of confirm that.
Alors, if we are in the case of a new time, I restart. We will apply the World Rugby rules. It means during a game, if you cannot play, if you have no substitute or something like that, if you cannot play full scrum, we will apply the World Rugby laws. It means you must take off one player. It's very clear in the World Rugby laws.
Okay.
Now, we had a new rules. It's a Swiss rules. The coach, even if he have a substitute, we can play front row, can decide to ask no contest scrum because he think he has a problem with safety. He has the scrum, the opposite clubs is too strong, and he can choose to say it's dangerous. I want no contest scrum. In this case, you must you cannot keep 15 players on the pitch.
Okay. Thank you.
I am clear. I answer or not?
Yes, you did. That's perfect. Next question. You mentioned for the National League D, the Development League, for no-shows, that if it's only a forfeit if nobody shows, but that if people show up, then it's a technical forfeit. What's the border there? If one person shows up, do they get a technical forfeit?
Yes.
Because that's wrong. Really, I would have an issue. I think that in the wording of it, you would say that there's got to be some border, because if some team shows up with 2 players, they have to make the effort. And Andrew's suggesting 10. I think that's I think that you can still play in National League D with 10. So if it's under 10, that's a tough one. I think that there should be a limitation on because somebody can take the piss and just show up with one person, just send one person, and everybody stays at home and has a beer. And I don't think that that's fair to the hosting team.
Yes. So I hope if there is only one player, the team said before, okay, we are forfeit. But maybe you can have, in D-League, for example, Palaisieux have only 12 players. It could be that there is one day 4 players who can be to the game. So, but they have 8 players. So we want to. You have 8 players. You can go to play the games.
So I understand that if it's 8 players going, that probably is more reasonable. But if it's somebody's taking the piss and sending 1 or 2 people, that's not right. So you still have to have at least a minimum to have some kind of a game. If you're sending 3 or 4, I don't think that's right. I think that that's really unfair. So there has to be. I mean, maybe it's 7 or 8 or 10. I don't know what the number should be. I'm not suggesting one, but there should be a minimum, because below that, it's really, really unfair. And it is a forfeit, not a technical forfeit.
I think that is a good point. There's got to be a line between taking a piss and sending a player. And like what Sebastian said, you set the bar at 10 and then they only have 8. And now those 8 have to stay home and the opposing team won't have a game either. So if you say somehow you set the rules to encourage those 8 to go, exactly, and then they can actually have a game because they could mix with the other team, and in the development league, that still allows them to play on Saturday.
Yes, but a four players, you're not going to have a game with 4 players, right? So there's got to be a limit to this, I think.
Okay, Josh. I have a meeting. I have a conf call with the Commission competition Wednesday. I will propose that to add a minimum number of players.
Okay.
Maybe 7 or 8 could make sense. Because that still allows them to play rugby.
7, I think it's good numbers, because 7 we can play 7s rugby. Less 7s, it's not rugby.
Yes, I agree. Okay, sorry, I have a couple more. There was you mentioned that the FSR option for the competition structure was to go with the under 19 rules for scrums and everything else. One of the things that we noticed in that is in the Excellence A, because the Excellence A has been played under the under 19 rules, is shorter halves. So we play 35 minutes, I believe. And the question would be able to play with the, in the FSR, so in the motion 2 for that one, would it be possible to have an 80-minute game with the limitations going more around safety rather than around the duration of the game? So more around the scrum safety. That's the question there from me.
So did you understand?
But if we play, I think if we play with World Rugby rules, Excellence A will play with timing of World Rugby rules.
What I'm saying is, if we go with option 2, which is what the FSR has suggested, which would be
okay for the
remain on the under 19. The unfortunate side effect of that is that we have shorter games, and I think that these leagues are still able to play a full 80 minutes, even with the reduced safety concern, like scrum concerns. And I would much prefer, and Andrew's shaking his head as well, he agrees, 80 minutes would be much nicer for these second teams.
Okay, alors. Okay, I must speak about that with the commission competition. David said that for the D League, 35 minutes for all people. Maybe he speak about him. I don't know.
No. Maybe this is something that can be a little bit different per league. Maybe in the D League it makes more sense.
Yes. No, but I understand. I understand what do you mean, and I think Excellence A must play with 40 minutes. I will propose to the commission competition. But it's a good proposal.
But I think the main concern is the scrum safety.
Yes.
So maybe the idea could be to apply the under 19 law variations only to the scrum.
That's my suggestion.
They're still playing 80 minutes, everything else is the same, but the scrum would be pushing maximum 1.5 meters. That means the whole pack can advance past the ball. That's 1.5 meters. Yeah. And the wheel can only be 45 degrees.
The idea is to have some kind of a hybrid where we say we apply under 19 these specific under 19 rules, or all under 19 rules except for the duration of the half. It's a little bit up to the competition committee, but the most prominent one for me is the duration of the game. It should be 80 minutes.
Okay.
I have about the labelization. I think that the timing of it is extremely important. Right now, in the 2 times that we've done it, Sebastian, it's come the week before an FSR meeting, and there seems some feeling that it's being done just to get it to be said that it's done before the meeting. And I think that what we need to do is have something done in the first half of the season with a validation in the second half of the season. So the teams may be able to implement some of the aspects that are keeping them back a little bit in terms of labelization, and then they have an opportunity to actually correct that during the course of the season. And then by the end of the season, maybe they can go up 1 level. And I think that would be very helpful. Is the timing is super critical, and it can't be in the last week of the season, as it's kind of been done now. And I'm not trying to. I know that it's a lot of work for you, Sebastian. I'm not trying to be negative against you. It's just I think that for it to work, it really needs to be done earlier. And that's just you don't need to comment on that. It's just a statement. And one last question was. They've introduced in the New Zealand competition right now this change of rules. It's a trial, I know, but it's a change of rules for red cards to be 20-minute bans with the ability to replace that player. So that player can't come back on the field, but a player can come back onto the field in replacement of that one so that you get back up to 15, for example. Is that something that Swiss Rugby is considering? Is it something that's not available yet in terms of World Rugby? Is it just being trialed? Because it sounds quite interesting to me.
I think that is a trial they haven't made available to everyone. That's the orange card they've been talking about. And those are type of things they would first trial in maybe one professional league or in one like under 20 World Cup tournament. And then they assess how it works. And then if it's positive, they will make it available to everyone. And so for a small union like ours, again, with the type of refereeing and coaching we have, it's usually better to wait till they've tested that elsewhere and then make it available for everyone. And then we certainly always adopt the new laws that they make available.
I was just curious. Thank you. And apologies for so many questions.
Okay, Gianluigi, I think, had a question before. I don't know if he still wants to ask. No? Okay, everything's been taken care of. Then I'm looking across. I don't see anyone else. So the last, sorry, Matthias.
Yeah, hello everyone. For those who don't know me, president of Rugby Union Zurich and regional representative Northeast Switzerland, so sort of sub-region of the NSRV. I have a couple comments as well, maybe not as many as Josh, but so first one I wrote down is the labeling. So what does mandatory for NLA and NLB mean? Is it just that it's mandatory to do it and to participate, to take the time to sit together with you? Or is it mandatory in the sense that you can only take part in the league with some sort of label that you suggested further down?
The idea is mandatory for everyone, and we did the job together to have a project, a plan for the season with goals, and to try to reach these goals. It is the idea when I say mandatory. So we make the assessment, we choose goals, and to try to reach these goals.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so for that part, I agree. It makes sense. It was good input, just having sort of outside view. What I don't agree with is already now, for me, this questionnaire is still in a sort of trial phase, and you can see that it has changed that much, that we went from no labeling last year to a silver label this time. Not because we've improved like that much, but rather because the numbers, the points given were adjusted a lot. So there's no planning security if that's still in a sort of trial phase. So I would definitely opt against implementing some compulsory rules in terms of accessing leagues or playoffs there, due to it being a new tool. And for me, the main benefit is helping the teams be conscious about what they can improve, rather than already like with the hammer hit on the clubs that maybe aren't quite there yet. So that's just a statement for you to keep in mind, because I've done it twice now with Seb, 2019 and now just a couple of weeks ago. Regarding the Switzers motion, I can just more or less repeat or add on to what David said. For me, it's very optimistic to think that these sort of struggling women's B-sides such as Zug, Zealand is new. They have to see if they can sustain a whole season. And also Luc is sort of a question mark. And it would be sad to see the NLB women's effort just crumble because one team feels they don't really belong there and they should move up. It's been unfortunate for all of us that we couldn't have a full season and they couldn't have maybe their earned right to move up. But then also somebody will be relegated, I guess, or we would have talked about that. But for now, it seems like them abandoning the B League would put a lot of, or would have disadvantages for the remaining teams. So that's my standpoint on this. Regarding what Andrew suggested with the voting rights, so Veronica mentioned this working group, the governance working group. It's been at a bit of a standstill, unfortunately, with all the other COVID measures and stuff. We will meet again on Monday in an online meeting. We will certainly, so it was already a topic, so to change the voting rights according to where you play, for example, or maybe have a competitions commission with a certain quota or whatever. I think it's a suggestion that is worth looking at. For now, just in terms of policy, I think it would be wrong to quickly submit a motion and vote this together with all these playing aspects, because this is a statute change that needs 3/4 agreement and officially can only be done by an extraordinary meeting, which has to be well, at least there is some kind of delay to invite everybody, so they're aware of it. And for me, this is not the type that we're voting on electronically now. So unfortunately, from my point of view, it's too short notice for these changes to apply this change.
Matthias, just to correct, it's almost perfect what you said. The only small correction is that it can be an ordinary General Assembly that can vote this.
Which would be held in September, right?
Yeah, exactly. Not extraordinary, ordinary.
No, but I mean, if we wanted to do it now before September, it would have to be an other extraordinary meeting with probably also some discussion part, not, well, and also it would invalidate the whole voting that we plan now, or would have to go before that, and then only NLA clubs could vote on this part and so on. So
it would depend on the motion. You're right. This requires 3/4 majority. If the motion said whatever it says, if it changes the votes, it's a change of statutes, and it requires a 3/4 majority.
So therefore, it would have to be, of course, done before the electronic votes on the championship. So it would prolong the time until we have the decisions. It will prolong the time until we have the calendars, and just so I don't think it's a good idea. I think if you really want to do that, suggest a motion or bring up a motion for September, and we will from there on apply this rule, but not for these competition changes now. And the last question is if you already have a fixed date when these competition rules will be voted on electronically, just to sort of plan maybe within a smaller circle among the clubs, another meeting to know, well, to speak among us.
Well, as always, we have the technical meetings to first present the ideas. Now we got the feedback this morning and from you guys. So now, well, most of them are competition changes. So Sebastian would take it back to discuss with the Competitions Commission. From there, the motions will be finalized according to your feedback and their discussions. And from then, we will make sure you have at least 3 weeks for studying the motions before the vote will take place. And because it's an electronic vote, there will then be at least 1 week time to make your vote. As usual, it will be that online type of vote.
So we're middle July something.
Yeah, exactly. It's like mid-July.
Okay.
Okay, then Rael is raising her hand. We'll go to her, and then hopefully we can wrap up in time. Go ahead, Rael.
So just as discussion points again, first considering the moving up of the Switzer's team to the NLA, I just think that it's very important that we do not forget the NLB, because developing the rugby doesn't just mean more teams in the NLA, but actually more teams all over the different levels. And last year we once discussed a different type of competition where after the preliminary rounds, the top 4 go into the playoffs, and then there was a second group phase for the 5th to 7th place and an NLB team to play kind of a round robin or some competition. Maybe like this, to be able to split up the league into 3 groups might help developing Winterthur, Konstanz, and obviously the now more experienced team in an NLB with more numbers to have like good quality games as well. That's just an idea, I don't know. And my second point, for coming back to that Excellence A question of the men's team, it's just a thought that I had. I do not understand how a team can play in NLA for the men without having a form of development excellence team that supports the team. Like, how do they want to develop players if they don't have a good quality second team? And so it might be that for small club, I mean, I don't know the situation of the small men's club that well, so I wouldn't want to judge them, but for me, it seems very difficult to have a good, healthy NLA team without having another team to support you. Thank you.
David.
Thank you. That echoing again Andrew's point. And then David, maybe we can make this the last question on this, then I can quickly still show you renewal on Sport Lomo, and then everybody can be on their way. Go ahead, David.
Yeah. Sorry for another question about this issue. I wanted to ask, how does it look like, for example, let's see that we have Lugano and we have Rugby Ticino, which kind of does not exist anymore, but still kind of exists. How would it be if Lugano would declare Ticino as their second team, even though they are two clubs, and kind of form an entente? Is this possible or not? Because that seems to be an obvious thing, and it happens in sport a lot. I mean, in ice hockey, you have an A club, and they have I think Winterthur is kind of the excellence team of Kloten, or I don't know exactly, but it's a common thing. Just, would that be possible or not? And if so, why aren't they doing this?
It's a great idea. It's possible from the side of the FSR, but so far, when we brought this idea to the clubs, they have informed us that some members of each club doesn't love the members of the other club, and for the moment they are not very interested in this option, but we think it's a good suggestion, and we've tried to suggest this to them several times. But perhaps if they heard from some colleague club presidents that would encourage them to consider such an option, maybe they would be inclined to change their mind about it.
Yeah, that's important to know, to decide, because as Andrew said, yeah, they don't do their job. And I know it's sometimes you try and you just fail, you can't do it. But if there is an option, but you just fail to do it because you don't like each other or you don't want to, then it's like, well, okay, then you failed. Then you didn't even try. That's the big thing. And if there is a region and they're alone, there is no other club, they really have no way, but they're sportive on the level of A, that's another situation kind of. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, as last point, I will just quickly show you on my screen how to renew members on Sport Lomo. So hopefully you can see my screen. I'll get rid of these. And from last year, Winterthur kindly allowed me to use their player database as a test environment. So here you can see I'm logged in the not real Winterthur, but test Winterthur, because I created a test club. So basically when you log in at sportsmanager, fsr.sportsmanager.ie, you will see this interface. Sorry, I just closed the door. You'll see your own club admin, whether it's the green backdrop or the red one. And then here, in this section, you can renew members for next season, just the way you could register members. So when you go into renew members, right now I will see no players because we've already changed in Sport Lomo to the season 2020 and 21. If I go back to season 19-20, I will see all these test players that we have used from Winterthur, and now I will use this one where I registered a fake player that's just called test. So if I want to renew this player, I would just click renew from last year's license to next year. So this is Veronica Test. Then if they should pay online by credit card, I will use the Stripe. If not, if I want to pay by invoice to the FSR, I will make offline payment. If I keep awaiting approval, it means then the club will approve this. In this package, let's say Mrs. Test Players registering as an adult player for next season, and continue. Then it should load that person's profile with everything already filled in. You see Miss Veronica Test, everything's filled in from last year. And even my fake picture remains. My fake certificate and my fake ID, obviously with a real player, hopefully it's not fake, but real. So if I want to keep the picture, I just check the box, use existing attachment. If If I want to upload a new picture, I could upload a new picture. And then here's my, actually not fake, but real passport. And then here, if you click register, you can register the player for next season. And that's all the renewal. That's all you need to do to renew each player. At the same time, if a player has registered themselves, they can also renew their own registration for next season. So then they would log in the way they do on the public profile. Again, they select their region, they select their club. So for those of you who let the players register themselves, they would then go back to do their renewal again for this year. So again, we will try to renew Mrs. Test Player as an adult player. Because she will have logged herself, she will have registered herself, she actually has a login. She can then log in on her public player profile, or not public, her private player profile. And again, here she can renew for next season. So again, she will pick adult player, 50 Swiss francs, that's the FSR license, and continue. And there, Mrs. Test Player can, again, adult player, Mrs. Test. If she has sons or daughters, she could even add new members, register new players, but here she's going to register herself for next season. And again, all her information will appear here, including the pictures and everything. And then from here, she'll go on to the payment screen. Either she'll pay directly by credit card, or if you've issued her a code, then she can pay to the club, and then the club will be invoiced by us. So that's just to give you an overview on the renewals. And then you're totally welcome to, yes, I shouldn't forget to say we've created a manual that shows this whole process, including screenshots for how to renew and how to register players. And on Monday, Sonia is preparing the different translations of that. So that will then you'll have that available in English, French, and German. And then there's a question in the chat: what member status did you choose in the admin renewal workflow? For member status, I chose just now, I chose the waiting approval. That then means the club goes through and will approve any members trying to register to your club. But you could also choose active as a status, which means you don't have to approve. However, because we are now in June, and normally we are still fully in the old season, the new licenses, even if you register them now, they won't be valid till July. Because in normal years, we would still be playing in the old season. So because we're not playing, you can renew your members, but the licenses are then valid from July. So this might be a reason why you won't see any player's license active until the new season starts, which is July. And then David says, can we set the Übernahme of the picture to by default? Right now, they set it that you have to click the box every time, but I can ask them to set it by default that you use the existing picture, and only if you actively unclick it, then you can add a new picture. So maybe that makes a few less clicks. All right. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. Seb, did we forget anything? Okay. Again, thank you so much for participating. I'm very much looking forward, and it will be my pleasure to see everybody again in person. But I really also hope we can use this as a new tool to allow us to interact and to speak with each other without having to travel across half of Switzerland in person. So hopefully in the future we can mix the two types of meetings and interactions, where sometimes it will be absolutely a pleasure and will be fantastic to see each other face to face, and maybe other times we can use this as a tool to exchange and to keep in touch. So if anybody has any other questions or things to say, you can unmute yourself. And if not, you're welcome to go and have a nice afternoon and a lovely Sunday. Thank you very much.